Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much. As Tracy said, I'm going to do a presentation on postgraduate funding opportunities at our university. And obviously, it's for the period of time 2022-2023. So the go-to place when it comes to funding is the Office of Research Development. The Office of Research Development is located within the Research and Engagement Division of the institution. Geographically, it's positioned in the 13th floor of the main building at South Campus. So if you ever find yourself at South Campus and you feel that you need some money, go up to the 13th floor and ask for, no, I'm joking. So go up to the 13th floor after you've made an appointment, and you can see a number of people who will really be very helpful to you when it comes to funding. So the Office of Research Development, also known as RD, focuses its activities around the development of new and emerging researchers and providing access to funding opportunities for postgraduate students. So that's honors, masters, and doctorates. It's a very, very useful place to go, especially if you are looking to, after having worked on your budget as Tracy has requested you to do, and you realize actually you need to get some funding, this is the place to go. The only thing about funding though, and you must always keep this in mind, is that you normally apply for funding the year before that you are hoping to get the funding. So thinking about your funding now is a good time. And just remember, say you don't get funding when you apply for funding, try again. So even if you're partway through your studies, there are other opportunities for funding, but you just got to do your homework when it comes to that. So the Research Development, Office of Research Development recognizes that life has more to offer than just studies. And it is also interested in equipping tomorrow's leaders, young adults who are going to set the academic, professional, and artistic agenda of the future. This is quoting straight from the booklet. So when you go and look for that booklet, you're going to read this. Whether you are from South Africa, other parts of Africa, or overseas, Research Development embraces the quality and diversity of students who come to Nelson Mandela University. And that's important to remember. If you're an international student, there's also funding available to you. And if you are South African, there's opportunities for you. So there's opportunities for everybody here at the university. Scholarships and bursaries that the Research Office offers are one of the ways Nelson Mandela University can support you to achieve all your academic goals. So if you haven't been there already, the Office of Research Development has a website. There you can see it on the screen. Please go there. You can go there now as we speak, and you can look at the website. There's a lot of information on that website. They've recently upgraded it, so it's really user-friendly and lots of information for you with regards to funding, but also with regard to other things as well. So the purpose of this website is mainly to provide academic staff and students with information pertaining to research development and support, including scholarships, bursaries, and for emerging researchers. So it covers a range of funding and support for development, research development. So they really are looking to help people who are novice researchers, whether you are at master's level, doctorate, or research who's just recently graduated with a PhD, and of course, an honors as well. So there's funding also for research projects. There's funding for research workshops. And and we'll repeat this a number of times, don't forget, lots of workshops are available at the university, and many of them are coming from this department, which helps to support students through workshops, and they are all free. So it is your responsibility to look at this website regularly. So please, the moment you wake up in the morning, you turn on your computer and go to rd.mandela.ac.za. It's for the best. Okay, just kidding. Okay, so the Office of Research Development has a website, which you can now see what it looks like. You can see how it's laid out, and there's lots of links that you can click on and obtain lots of very interesting and useful information. So the office also has a Facebook page, and this is actually really important because the Facebook page is really going to help you to have access to the latest information at the click of a button. So it enables you to receive notification of funding opportunities, enables you to see the deadlines for submitting applications, and if you like this page, that is, you click on it, then you'll be the first to receive funding opportunity notifications. So that's actually a lie, because you'll be first of many people. You will not be the first. You'll be a tie of receiving the same advert. However, I'd just like to say to you, a very important point to think about is the deadline for submitting applications. It's the first thing you want to look for, because you might see this wonderful scholarship or bursary that really attracts your eye, but you discover after having perhaps done a little bit of homework that it's actually past the submission date. Very important that you look for those dates, because that's going to help you to have the edge, and they don't extend, almost never do they extend a submission date, simply because there are hundreds of people applying, and that particular department has loads and loads of applications coming through, which they have to sift through and then look for and find the person who's the best suited to that particular funding. So please make sure that you do apply, and also make sure that you apply to lots of funding. Don't just apply to one. And also don't underestimate or second guess whether or not you will get that funding. Trust me, if you don't try, you won't know. So you just need to keep applying. And believe me, there's going to be some stage that if you've exhausted all opportunities, something's going to come up whereby you might be the only one applying, and you find yourself getting the funding. So please keep trying. Don't ever give up. So this is just what the Facebook page looks like. As you can see, there's a lot of information there, and it keeps popping up with new adverts for funding. And so if you are accessing Facebook via your mobile phone, you're going to really be able to access a lot of information and be able to get those applications in. So on the website, there's also a postgraduate funding booklet. So you really need to go and get hold of this booklet so you can download it, and that's the link there for the booklet. A lot of information in there which you can use and plan for. And be sure to refer to this when you are looking to apply, because it will avoid having to send those emails off to people like Mr. Imtiaz Khan or Ms. Dillian Kharba, asking lots of questions. They're inundated with emails, so please also be patient with them in their responses, because they have so many people asking questions with regard to funding. So you as students are really encouraged to look at the university memo. Now, many people just ignore the memo. Some people even have it been transferred straight to the recycle bin. But can I encourage you to look at the memo, because the memo has adverts similar to the Facebook page of recent applications, recent adverts for funding. Very important. You need to be prepared now for possible funding. So if you see, because very often an advert will be sent out and the applications are due in 2 weeks. So you need to make sure that you are ready now for potential funding. The other place that you can look on is the Nelson Mandela University notice board on the student portal. So if you go into the portal, the student portal, you'll find there's a section where they have notice boards, and I haven't actually got it on this on my presentation, but if you are familiar with the student portal, you will find it. So it'll be there amongst somebody selling, some cups and a set of cups, and another person selling a book, and then there will be also somewhere around there some adverts about funding. So the funding booklet contains scholarships and bursaries for the 2022 for application in the 2022 academic year with various deadlines. Sometimes it doesn't give a specified deadline, and that's where you're going to look for the advert as it comes out, either in the notification or on Facebook or on your memo, your emails that come through. So please keep an eye out for that. And there are honors, masters, and doctoral opportunities. Very important, students should apply by the deadlines in 2021 for the 2022 academic year, or really the 2022 for the 2023 academic year. So please note that the information provided in this booklet may change from year to year. That's important. So if you've got an old version, most of those different kinds of scholarships and bursaries remain the same year by year, but the dates and submission dates do change. Students must regularly check for updates on deadlines and other related information with the Research Development Office. But you will find most of these things on the website, on Facebook, on the memos, and on the notification. As you can tell, with all these different means of communicating funding opportunities, the university is trying very hard for students to actually take those opportunities up. And they also really try hard to help the students with the applications as well. So funding opportunities open only once a year, and there's no guarantee for second calls of applications. A good example is the NRF, National Research Foundation. They send out calls, and one really needs to make the most of those and apply as soon as they come. But as I said before, be sure to prepare. Make sure that you have your CVs ready and everything else that you need to have at hand to be able to submit in time. Therefore, students are encouraged to apply for funding while they wait for their postgraduate study admission outcomes. So, so in other words, you're applying for funding. This is the ideal situation. You might not be in that situation, but it doesn't mean that you still can't apply for 2022. That's what I encourage you to do. 2023. So please think about that. So yeah, look out for all those adverts as they come, and be ready to respond. Okay, what should you have? What should you have at hand? So one of the things you should have is your, this depends on your situation, if you're full-time, if you're part-time, but you should have the latest pay slips of your parents, of your spouse, or your own pay slip. That should be handy. So that's in case you're going to apply, and then we need to look and see, are you eligible, or are you perhaps a millionaire and we're not so sure that you probably need that money, you'll give it to somebody else. So the other thing is to have a letter from your employer stating your gross salary, or a letter from your parents' pension fund stating gross annual income. Again, like I said before, say for instance you have a higher salary, or you have parents who have, substantial. Apply anyway, just try. I know of one example of somebody whose husband was a chemical engineer and got a full bursary, full cover. And I mean, she went to Disneyland. So I'm kidding. So that's the sort of things that you need to have at hand. It's not the sort of things that you're going to have that are easy to get hold of if you need to do it tomorrow. So that's why I'm saying get all of those things in a little folder on your laptop so that they are easy to access when you need to. You need a copy of estimation of student fees account showing cost of studies, and that you can get from student accounts. And then also a copy of your full academic record. That's another thing. Also, just remember, it depends on what kind of academic record you get, because there's a payment that is involved there if you want to access your student record. So you need to, you sometimes have to pay for that. If it's an academic record which contains all the details of your modules, that's a larger sum, which I think, if I stand to be corrected, over 600 Rand for that application. So you might want to start saving now. Okay, so the other thing we need is a proof of registration, and that's free, thankfully. Of course, you need a certified copy of your ID, passport, so always have that handy. If you can scan that in, then you know that you've got it when you need it. Keep updating your CV, that's always a good thing to have, and you never know when you need to hand it out. And then letters from referees. The best thing is to do now is to approach people and ask them if they are willing to be a referee for you. In other words, they're going to write sometimes a motivational letter, or they're willing to take a phone call if the people that you're applying to are going to phone them. So they just must be willing to speak on your behalf, saying that they think that you are eligible or are going to benefit from the application. If you don't have an actual motivation letter, which is also nice to get, if you can ask them to do that, just put their names on your CV already and have them handy. And you want to probably look between 3 and 4 people would be good, and have quite a diverse range of people if possible. And always you need to have one lecturer, postgrad, somebody hopefully with PhD. The higher you aim, the better. Gives you a little bit more of an edge. So in other words, if you go to professor, then you'll get a little bit more of an edge than somebody who just got a doctor. Okay, so section 1 of the PG booklet says it's bursaries that are administered by the Office of Research Development. This is the list. I'm not going to read them all out, but that's the list that is specifically that they are managing. And just remember, so this is if you are going to be now studying at our university. These are the kind of bursaries that can help you, primarily targeting South Africans, but also Africans as well. But just you're going to have to look through what are you eligible for. Another thing that is sometimes a cutoff is the age. Depending on your age, it can also be influenced. Can also influence whether or not you are eligible. And so what happens is research development. They will go through your application and see whether or not you do qualify based on some basic eligibility criteria. And every bursary and scholarship has different criteria, similar but different. For example, the Cunningham Scholarship, which I'm going to show you just briefly, they put priority on people who are the descendants of Mr. Cunningham, or Mr. Cunningham's grandfather. And so if you are a descendant of the Cunninghams, please apply for that one. You'll get quite a good chance of getting it. Okay, so those are all those, and the one I'd like to really encourage you to go for, because this could really, if you are looking to have an academic career, the NRF is a good funder to go for, National Research Foundation, because you could get it at honors, and if you got honors and you apply for masters and they know that you did well in your honors, they will give you the masters more than likely. And if you did well in your masters, they more than likely are going to give you the one for the doctorate. And one day, if you want to get a postdoctoral or become NRF rated, or go into research in a big way, you can get NRF funding after you've got your doctorate. So really do give it a good go. And you'll notice there's also NRF extension support. So if you want to go further in your master's and your doctoral studies, or for instance, if you didn't apply from the beginning of your master's, you can apply and try and get funding even if you're halfway through with your master's, but you've actually progressed quite nicely. So please try whatever funding you think you could get. Don't doubt yourself, just give it a go. Okay, and these are independent applications, but have a look at those as well. So there's quite a range of those, including international funding, but those are mostly for if you want to study overseas. But for example, DENOSA, which is at the top there, is for people wanting to do research or studies through nursing science. So yeah, so there's a whole range of different types of funders that you can apply to. This is just the one that I spoke to you about before, the Cunningham Scholarship, just to show you what the kind of things they might ask for. So here's the eligibility. It's they're looking for people who are wanting to study their masters and their doctorates. It's for those who are registered full-time for 2022. Fields of sciences, engineering, and education. However, if you are in these other, in the SET disciplines, I think that's social sciences and education. You've got psychology, social work, pharmacy, human movement science, and biokinetics and dietetics. So you can see there's a whole range of studies or disciplines which are within the Faculty of Health Sciences. So that's this is definitely one for you to apply for. It's unfortunately for South African citizens only, and then this application will be shortlisted based on both academic merit and financial need. If you can just go back one. I just wanted to show you the closing date. So you see it's the 20th of July, which is on Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. sharp. So be sure to get your applications in. But what I also wanted to just highlight is the fact that there's very strict deadlines when it comes to dates, and in this case, they actually indicate the time that you must actually submit it by. Okay. And thanks. So there's a couple of other things I think you would find useful to know about. I'm not saying that this can happen. So for instance, internal research bursaries. This happens, and I think Tracy did mention something related, or maybe it was one of the other presenters, that sometimes your supervisor has funding. Maybe they've got a particular project and you're part of that project. it's possible that they could give you a little bursary or some sort of funding. That does happen. It's not something that one goes and asks for, but the supervisor will offer it or make the suggestion, and they will, it's out of the goodness of their heart that they choose to do that, but it does happen. So just so that you know, there is this particular this possibility that can happen, and that supervisors do it if they have the funding. Then student account refunds. This is an application process for students to withdraw any remaining funds in their student accounts. So what happens is when you get a bursary and you get funding, it doesn't go directly into your bank account. It goes into your student account, and then it has to go from there into your bank account. But then you have to liaise with the accounts department to have that transferred. So you just need to know that there is you have a student account. We will often see your funding for your studies reflected if you go online, and then the funding for the bursaries go into that account, just so that and if you go onto the website, you can click onto that student account refunds link and it will tell you more. Then another thing which is also related to what Ms. Sidanane spoke about just a little bit earlier is those extra bits of support and funding. So in this particular case, language editing, proofreading or formatting, the university likes to assist students to finish off their studies. So you're finishing off your thesis, you know that you want to submit it, for example, in December, and you are planning to have it edited and formatted. The university will help you to, provided there's sufficient funding, the university will help you to pay for that editing. And editing, believe it or not, can be very expensive. So for instance, if you have a 200-page document and it's at 25 Rand per page for editing, you can do the maths. There's quite a substantial amount that you have to pay for. And of course, there is formatting. Sometimes, especially if you're doing quantitative research and you've got many tables that you need to make sure that your document looks neat, you have somebody do the formatting for you, which is paid separately to the editing. It's an important thing to factor in when you are working on your budget, because your editing can go beyond 5,000 Rand, depending on the size of the document. So it's something just to be aware of and to think about, that there are lots of costs along the way that you need to plan for, and you need to find out where you're going to get the funding from. So, and that's part of the reason why this little presentation on funding was done, and hopefully you can make some use of it. And please just give it a go. Even if you doubt yourself, please just give it a go, and you never know, you might be surprised what could come about. Wishing you all the best.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Morton. I didn't know a lot of that information, so now I know. Thank you, much appreciated. I see we have a few questions, but I do see it was addressed as well. So, sorry, just reading here. Should we go, would you like to address all the questions or the questions that just want, Okay. So, okay, I'll read the question and then you can read what the response was and whether you want to add anything extra. So, Dr. Morton, in terms of providing the latest payslip when required, what if I'm on a one-year contract and by the time I register for my studies, by the time I register for my studies, the contract would have ended. How do I make that clear when applying? Should it happen that I have not registered yet and the potential funder requires proof of registration, what do I do? And then you can see the response.
It depends on which funder. For example, for the PGRS, the application form does cater for you to state when your contract is ending, or rather if your employment is on short contract basis. Always check for what the call states and follow up with the contact person to know for sure what to do in such situations. So that was Ms. Sidanane. Thank you very much. I think that answers the question, unless I think that pretty much answers the question. Thank you.
Okay, I think Yolanda was happy with the response. She did indicate that. Okay, and then any other questions, comments?
Tembeka?
Yes?
It's just an addition. There is a call that is currently open for the 2023 academic year. It is the CSIR call. I did share it with all of our postgraduate students. The closing date is on the 4th of August. And with CSIR, it's important that you consult with your supervisor before you apply, so that they can assist you in terms of strengthening your application, because you are up against thousands other students from all over South Africa. So just for students to be aware that there is a call for next year's funding, CSIR, the closing date is the 4th of August. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very useful information. Any other questions from the floor or from students? Okay, I have a question then. So how developed does your sort of research idea, proposal, et cetera, need to be to apply for funding? Because if you haven't even registered as a student, for example, you know, and you still want to apply for funding, yeah, just your thoughts around that. Like, how far do you need to be in order to apply for the funding itself? That's
a very good question. Because if I can think of NRF as an example, the NRF, if you're applying for your master's, for example, or your doctorate, they do look at the topic that you've chosen. They look at how you've conceptualized the topic. So if you can demonstrate that you have a clear idea of what you want to do, it may not necessarily have been through your department or the faculty at that stage. But if they can see that you have a clear plan and what you like to achieve, it's logical, you are using a typical academic writing. In other words, you're writing in a way which is convincing that this is something that's doable. That's definitely going to stand you in good stead. But as far as, you know, you don't have to have you can have a rough draft. That would be fantastic if you have it. But usually the applications don't request, like for example, NRF, they don't request a full proposal. So they've got sections that you need to fill in. And but it's a very good question. I would say that if you are working on a concept, that you share it with as many people as possible so they can give you feedback, because at this stage you might not even have a supervisor, you know, if you're applying the year before. And so you don't know, you need to be able to bounce your ideas off somebody. So you need to just approach somebody who you trust, who will be able to give you some good feedback. But great question.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Morton.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. One more comment, question?
Sorry, man. It's a comment. It just came when David was speaking. So I used to work for at the RD office before this. So when David was talking about you know, you need to give people your work, I just remembered that with big funders like NRF, with NIHSS, with CSIR, you do need to have somebody who's your potential supervisor, because essentially those people will need to support your application. So while you are thinking about applications, also think about who can potentially supervise you for the next year. Maybe you are at your master's level and you're considering doing a PhD the following year. You need to already have kind of identified who you would approach and speak to that person regarding what you wish to do, because they're gonna have to complete what's called the supervisor report to kind of support your funding. So just another thing to think about with like big funders such as the NRF and CSIR.